Like in the when your song will the
Yeah.
that when man and the windows be down, man, I swear I'd be flexing on them at the gas station on purpose.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to get that song out. I'm trying to get that out next. Hopefully, I have it out before July the 4th. Trying to
That's a
put all
Southern
the
song for real.
yeah, trying to get it
Yeah.
done for the 4th.
Yeah, I love that song. That in church. Like when we got to the restaurant, I wouldn't even get out the car until church finished. I was like, nope, hold on. like, like
Yeah.
that song. Ooh. What's up, y'all? I see y'all coming into the room. Welcome back to Versus and Fives with Thinker and Bash. We are starting a little bit late. Bash is at the airport, and then I needed to just holler at my friend for a second because I had some shit on my mind. But I appreciate y'all for being here. What's up, Auntie Charlene? We're gonna do a quick show and uh keep Bash company while you wait on this flight. And this week it is closing out Genesis, and then going into Exodus 1. And really, we don't need to talk a lot about Genesis 49 or 50. What is it? Genesis 50?
Is
Genesis, is it 50?
that what we
Um, is it, or is it, does Genesis end with 49?
49.
49.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Genesis 49, no, we did 49. That was when we was talking about
All
Reuben
the
sleeping with yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's Genesis 50. Oh, they have the funeral procession for Jacob.
Okay.
Um, let's go ahead and share my screen right quick. Um, all right. What's up, Lala? What's up, D'Amico? What's up, Nikita? Appreciate y'all for showing up. Okay, so it says, then Joseph threw himself on his father's face and wept over him and kissed. Joseph commanded the physicians in his service to embalm his father. Was embalming a thing in Egypt back then? Ain't that a later Greek practice?
No, didn't they embalm mummies? Didn't they do that?
Did-
They mummified them some kind of way, right? Was it
I
with
think they
embalming?
mummified them, but I don't think embalming. I don't think they embalmed them. I think that's got to be an anachronism.
Maybe it is. I don't know. I haven't thought about that.
Um, so the physicians embalmed Israel. They spent 40 days doing this. So it took them 40 days to embalm him. For that is the time required for embalming. Now we know embalming don't take 40 days.
40.
But hey, maybe when the Hebrew Israelites say that um the Israelites are black, because like literally it takes black people damn near 14 days
Have a
to
funeral.
have a funeral. And then you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like I don't know, 40 days to embalm, man, ain't too far off. Like
That's
I don't know.
crazy.
But that is an Egyptian practice though, but not an Israelite practice, because keep in mind Joseph is in Egypt. So and the Egyptians wept for him 70 days. The Egyptians wept for Jacob.
Oh,
When the days of weeping for him were past, Joseph addressed the house of Pharaoh. If now I have found favor with you, please speak to Pharaoh as follows. My father made me swear an oath. He said, I'm about to die in the tomb that I hewed out for myself in the land of Canaan. There you shall bury me. Now, therefore, let me go up so that I may bury my father, then I will return. Pharaoh answered, go up and bury your father as he made you swear to do. So Joseph went up to bury his father. With him went up all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his household, and all the elders of the land of Egypt, as well as the household of Joseph, his brothers, and his father's household. Only their children, their flocks, and their herds were left in the land of Goshen. Both chariots and charioteers went up with him. It was a very great company. Mm. Um, so the Egyptians are giving a royal funeral to Joseph, that to Jacob. When they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond the Jordan, they held there a very great and sorrowful lamentation, and he observed a time of mourning for his father 7 days. When the Canaanite inhabitants of the land saw the mourning on the threshing floor of Atad, they said, this is grievous mourning on the part of the Egyptians. Therefore, the place was named Abel Mizraim. Huh. It is beyond the Jordan. Thus his sons did for him as he had instructed them. They carried him to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave of the field at Machpelah. the field near Mamre, which Abraham bought as a burial site from Ephron the Hittite. After he had buried his father, Joseph returned to Egypt with his brothers and all who had gone up with him to bury his father. Realizing that their father was dead, Joseph's brothers said, "What if Joseph still bears a grudge against us and pays us back in full for all the wrong that we did to him?" So they approached Joseph, saying, "Your father gave this instruction before he died. Say to Joseph, I beg you, forgive the crime of your brothers and the wrong they did in harming you. Now, therefore, please forgive the crime of the servants of the God of your father." Joseph wept when they spoke to him. Then his brothers also wept, fell down before him, and said, "We are here as your slaves." But Joseph said to them, "Do not be afraid. Am I in the place of God? Even though you intend to do harm to me, God intended it for good in order to preserve a numerous people as he is doing today. So have no fear. I myself will provide for you and your little ones." And this way he reassured them, speaking kindly to them. So Joseph remained in Egypt, he and his father's household, and Joseph lived 110 years. Joseph saw Ephraim's children of the third generation. The children of Machir, son of Manasseh, were also born on Joseph's knees. And that means Joseph adopted them.
No, no, just he saw him. Like the bonus needs him, that he carried him around before he died. You know what I'm saying? So he witnessed his great grandchildren or whatever.
Oh, I thought in ancient Israel, when you place a child on your knees, that's a sign that you adopted them as your own. That's why they were saying, like when Naomi placed Ruth and Boaz's son on her knees, that was Naomi's way of saying, like that's why Naomi said, I now have a son, or I now have a man child. Like in
Well,
ancient,
I
so it
I, I think it can be that, but
okay.
did you say he bore him on his knees or like a
Born, it says the children of Machir, son of Manasseh, were also born on Joseph's knees,
well, I mean,
like
it
B
could
O
be that
R
symbolically.
N.
Yeah, yeah, it could be that like, but the term in and of itself does not necessarily reflect it. It could be that colloquially, but it doesn't necessarily reflect it.
Okay,
Like to bear someone on your knees just means you put you lapse it,
you what?
you lapse it.
Um, last week when so when Jacob put Manasseh and Ephraim on his knees, isn't that like how you said that they became part of the tribe, the 12 tribes? That
But
was
no,
him
but
adopting them.
yeah, but notice he actually made the adoption, right?
Oh,
And last week he actually made an adoption, and in Naomi's case, she made an adoption.
oh,
That,
so you
that
have to announce it.
yeah, there's
Okay,
no. I mean, or like I said, it may be implied, right? But there isn't. It doesn't say that he adopted him. It just says that
okay.
he bore him on his knee. Yeah.
Okay. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "I'm about to die, but God will surely come to you and bring you up out of this land to the land that he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob." So Joseph made the Israelites swear, saying, "When God comes to you, you shall carry up my bones from here." And Joseph died, being 110 years old. He was embalmed and placed in a coffin in Egypt.
I
So
wonder
he
if it
was
took 40
buried.
days to do that.
Huh?
I wonder if it took him 40 days to embalm him.
Right. So the fact that it's saying that Joseph was buried in a coffin in Egypt and not in Canaan with his father, in the place where Abraham carved out, right? Joseph was buried in Egypt and
Hmm.
not with the rest of the Israelites. That's interesting. I didn't
Yeah.
recognize that the first time I read this. And so like they are, what I did recognize when I went from this chapter to the next chapter is that they're getting all of the Pharaoh's best, like the funeral procession.
Yep.
Pharaoh is, weeping for Jacob. It's like they are royalty.
Hmm.
And then the very next chapter, they go to being oppressed.
Hmm. Hmm. And this particular chapter is one of the Hebrew Israelites' favorite chapter. This is how they try to sneak in. Um, I'm trying to see if I can remember how it went. Okay, when they go have a funeral procession, they bring all the Israelites out and all the Egyptians out, but the Canaanites see this mass of people and say, "Oh, they're all Egyptian." Right? This is a sore mourning for the Egyptians, and so the Hebrew Israelites be like, "See, the Israelites look like the Egyptians because they black." Yeah,
Wait, the
that's
Israelites didn't like the Egyptians
no, no.
because
They
they.
look like Egyptians. The Israelites look like Egyptians.
Oh.
because the Canaanites couldn't tell the Egyptians from the Israelites. They said it was a sore morning for. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
But did
that,
did they forget that like at this point the Hittites, the Semitic, the Asiatic, Semitic people would have already come down, right, and lived in the Delta at this time. Egypt would have already been,
Arabic,
uh, yeah, at this
mm.
time, right?
Or I should say Arab. Yeah. But that's not what they don't forget it. That's not the point. They don't want to
Yeah.
talk about a
Oh, you
fact.
think? Oh,
Yeah, they don't want to talk about
but
a fact. Yeah,
oh, okay.
yeah.
So they thought that Egypt was just all black
Hmm.
skin, and
Hmm.
that because the Israelites are said to have been here at this time, they mixed in, and that means that the Israelites was black.
Oh, they came there black. Let them tell you. The Israelites always been black. Yeah. Not from a mixture, but just because they would just happen to be black people.
I'm talking about mixed in like the funeral procession.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. My bad.
Uh,
Yeah.
okay, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Um, okay, and then all right. Um, anything else about Genesis 50?
I think that's all I wanted to say. Well, we talked about the funeral procession. We talked about the embalming practices. We talked about. Oh, did you know? This just like kind of on the subject, kind of off subject. But did you notice that when the brothers came to make the apology, like they didn't just say, "Hey, bro, forgive us. We made a bad decision."
Hmm.
Right? They came in with this like, "Hey, we are the slaves of your God." Like
Yeah,
kind of hiding behind that God wall of like God says you should forgive us.
yeah, yeah.
Right? And I mean, not to bring up what you're talking, because that ain't everybody's business, but just in that case of like just not being able to do the empathetic thing, or not being able to be present emotionally and take accountability. Like, because what if he didn't want to forgive them,
Hmm.
right? And the reason that you put God behind it is because it's like,
To
God is,
coerce.
yeah, yeah. But like, but if you just needed somebody to forgive you, right?
Yeah,
But instead of just dealing with that, it's like, oh yeah, God said that, we not we as slaves and yada, like you're doing a lot instead of just saying, hey, we were young, we did a dumb thing, we're sorry about that, right? We
I
were
think they
jealous.
were scared they were going to lose stuff. Now that Jacob was dead, they was like, "Oh man, he ain't got no reason to keep us around this lavish lifestyle. Let's go and tell him God said forgive us." And that,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But why not just be a human? This your brother in the overall. Like it is what it is. And if he gonna forgive you, he gonna forgive you. If he not, he not. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
but hiding behind that God wall is a bit manipulative to me.
yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
That's why I can't. That's why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling right now. I can't trust it.
yeah, yeah.
Um, let's see. Exodus 1. All right. These are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt with Jacob: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah; Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin; Dan and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. The total number of people born to Jacob was 70. Joseph was already in Egypt. Then Joseph died, and all his brothers, and that whole generation. Hold on. Then Joseph died, and all his brothers, and that whole generation. Okay. So Joseph died, and all his brothers, and all of them died?
All the patriarchs died. So Naphtali, Dan, yada 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 yada. So all his brothers died. I think that's how that reads.
I thought Judah took over. Okay.
When, when did
Okay.
Judah take over?
I hold on. I hold on. But the Israelites were fruitful and prolific. They multiplied and grew exceedingly strong so that the land was filled with them. Now a new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. He said to his people, "Look, the Israelite people are more numerous and more powerful than we. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, or they will increase, and in the event of war, join our enemies and fight against us and escape from the land." Therefore, they set taskmasters over them to impress them with forced labor. They built supply cities, Pithom and Ramses, for Pharaoh, but the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread, so that the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites. The Egyptians subjected the Israelites to hard servitude and made their lives bitter with hard servitude and mortar and bricks and every kind of field labor. They were ruthless in all the tasks that they imposed on them. The king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, one of whom was named Shipra and the other Puah, when you act as midwives to the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stool, if it is a son, kill him. But if it is a daughter, she shall live. But the midwives feared God. They did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them, but they let the boys live. So the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and said to them, why have you done this and allowed the boys to live? The midwife said to Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, for they are vigorous and give birth before the midwife comes to them. So God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and became very strong. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families. Then Pharaoh commanded all his people. This is that shit right here, like that right there, like what we talked about, like a sentence like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
Pharaoh commanded all his people, every son that is born to the Hebrews you shall throw into the Nile, but you shall let every daughter live. I have a couple of issues with this.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah. One of them, I just realized, because I could have sworn that in here it says Judah is talking in the
Judah, Judah
right.
talking is well in Exodus. Am I bugging? Because
No,
keep in
like
mind. Oh, go
no,
go
in
ahead.
the rest of the Bible, like it'll say, and Judah said such and such, or Judah did this. Like, hold on, because I know I'm not going crazy. Hold on.
I mean, Judah is like the tribe, but I can imagine. But I don't not Judah the man. Not that I can remember. Like in the Ahola and Aholaba story where they say, like Judah is blah 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 blah, like more treacherous than your sister Judah or whatever, like, but I don't think Judah the human being says anything. Not that I can think of.
That's what it was in Judges. Hold on. Um, and I guess that's where I got mixed up. Um, because it said, I think when they were chosen to go down, the Lord said, Judah shall go up. I hereby give the land into his hand. And then it said, Judah said to his brother Simeon. So like it must, that has to be the tribe then. But I thought um at this time that Judah was, because I was like, because I remember, I don't know if you remember me asking you like how the hell Judah was still even alive to add to
Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
in
yeah,
Judges.
yeah, yeah. He yeah. Because keep in mind, that would have been Judah would have been 300 years old, at least. They're like he'd have been old as hell. Judah would
Yeah.
have been old as hell. Yeah,
But
yeah.
okay, and so I guess because I now that makes sense because I don't know how many times I read this, but I never it didn't dawn on me that it said and like and all his brothers and that whole generation. So in
Oh yeah,
Judges 1, 2, and 3, when it says the Lord said to Judah, Judah shall go up, I hereby give the land into his hand, because he uses the singular, his
yeah. He was
hand.
the second. Yeah,
Yeah. And then Judah said to his brother Simeon, like as if Judah is talking to Simeon
Judah's
there,
second. Yeah, yeah.
come up with me into the territory allotted to me so that we may fight against the Canaanites. Then I too will go up with you into the territory allotted to you. So Simeon went with him.
That's a weird way to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a weird way to say that. It could, a they right there would have been a much easier understanding. Yeah,
Yeah. And it's not like they don't have that in the Hebrew language. That like they know how to say, they do have words for they.
yeah.
And so yeah. Okay. And then the this the Pharaoh, the new Pharaoh, just all of a sudden don't know who these Israelites are after they were treated with royalty just one chapter ago.
Just a chapter ago. Just a chapter ago. But well, they have been multiplying. I see the thing about the time. Remember, we kind of walked through this little timeline. I, this is a like a unspecified amount of time. right? That goes from Joseph dying, or that generation of people dying, to this king that arose that didn't know Joseph, right? We don't know how much
But,
time that is.
but like with the records that Israel that Egypt keeps, right?
Mhm.
Joseph was buried in Egypt, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Most
yeah,
likely in the
yeah,
that there's no way this Pharaoh didn't know
yeah,
who Joseph was.
yeah.
That
You
doesn't
make a
make
good
sense
point.
to me.
You make a good point. He was buried in Egypt. You make a good point. Yeah,
And then like it says that they were prospering, right? Like
yeah,
and then all of a sudden he like, oh, I don't know who Joseph. Who the fuck are these Israelites? Like that doesn't make sense to me. And then the two midwives for all of these Israelites.
yeah. That's the part they throw me for the loop. How they sleep? Where they go to bed at? You know what I'm saying? Because you got a nation of people over here giving birth, and you got two midwives. How many arms they got?
Like and then does this seem kind of like racist to you?
Right? It's at least ethno is. I mean, because race wasn't really a concept then. But yeah, that seems a bit supremacist.
Yeah, supremacists.
Yeah, yeah,
Like the Egyptians are slow and the Israelites are so their bodies are just supreme that they just shoot babies out. Like it makes me think about like the midwives trying to get there to catch and they just sitting on the birth stool. Pew!
baby, just pop right out. Got them childbearing hips.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it says, so God dealt with the midwives and the people multiplied and became very strong. Um, yeah. I don't know. What thoughts do you have?
One of the things that kind of threw me for the loop is at this point in Egypt, and maybe I'm just missing if the midwives feared God. Like, how did they know God? You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Or what God did they fear? I get like just
Mm.
what
Yeah.
because when nobody talking about God here.
Mm-mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like there was no mention of like since they've been in Egypt, they because they don't have like this ritual of Passover yet. They don't have like all of this stuff that would make them distinguishable from anybody else that's there per se, right? And they're living out in Goshen, so they're not like you know in the city like that, right? They're kind of off into their own little world. So what God would the midwives have known?
Yeah, because they haven't been introduced by the one by Moses yet. Like
Yep,
didn't Moses have to introduce them? And then like the it can't be Joseph's God because the Pharaoh did recognize that God in Egypt, right? But that Pharaoh is dead and the new Pharaoh don't know the Hebrews. So
yeah,
it can't be that God.
yeah, yeah. So I'm like, what God was it that they feared? Or yeah, I don't know. Uh, that's just always been interesting to me.
I think
Because
this is how you can tell that it was written uh like years later.
yeah, yeah, because they don't even know. Well, I mean, it depends on how you read this, but Moses is gonna say they don't know Yahweh yet, right?
Hmm.
Um, so maybe they know El Shaddai or something, um, right? Like they probably would have known El Shaddai, um,
Their
but there's not.
ancestors' God. Because remember, at
Yeah,
this time they were polytheistic still, right?
yeah, yeah,
Rabbi Hanna
yeah.
said there's no monotheism in this book. I see the polytheism, but I definitely see the monotheism.
Well, the only person who's the real monotheism is Paul.
Really, you don't think Jeremiah was monotheistic
I think Jeremiah, unless I'm bugging, Jeremiah thought that there was a Most High God.
outside of Yahweh?
No, I thought he thought Yahweh was the Most High God.
Yeah, like and the
Yeah,
only one, right?
I don't know if he thought he was the only one. Because didn't they have a battle with gods one time? Didn't Jeremiah get into a whole thing about the people of the other nations with their other gods?
No, no,
Right?
no. No, I'm talking about as far as worshiping. He was monotheistic, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes, he worshipped one God. I mean,
Yeah.
I thought you meant like that there only existed one God. That's why I said like the only person I can think of that's like monotheistic, like that there is only one
Oh,
deity.
is it
And
is monotheism that you only think that you only worship one God, or that you only believe that there is only one God in existence?
monotheism means you believe that there's only one God in existence.
Oh, even if you don't worship, like,
Right.
but and then if you're polytheistic, I
You
thought it
believe
had
that
to
there's
do
many
with the
gods.
worship.
Well, it's kind of like when you use the word. Well, it kind of depends on how you use the word. Let me say it that way. But theism is just the belief in a God, like the
Mhm.
belief that a God exists. So if I put mono in front of that, I'm technically saying I believe that one God exists. I could be monotheistic and not even worship that God. You could believe in God and not worship God, right? But normally, when you believe in God, you do worship God. So those two things get blurred,
So belief doesn't necessarily mean worship.
right?
Okay.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Because remember what James said. James said the demons believe, right, that there's one God, but what they got to do with anything, right? So he separated it, at least in his theology, he separated the belief in a God and the worship of a God.
Okay. So
Yeah.
then you're saying that you think Jeremiah was polytheistic in nature.
Henotheistic is probably the best way to describe it. Henotheistic, and which is like with the council of God, right? That there's a most high God that sits in a divine council. And his God is the most high God, which is henotheism is a kind of form like well, it depends on how you say these words, but polytheism kind of just means it's just a bunch of gods and they just kind of often they doing it, they're not really connected. Like I'm trying to see how I say, like let's just say over in your neighborhood you got some gods, over in my neighborhood we got some gods. They don't really know each other, but we respect your gods, you respect ours, right? Henotheism is more like, okay, all these gods are connected and there's one God that sits over all of
Okay.
them.
Okay, that makes sense.
So Jeremiah, most of the people in the Old Testament that spoke were were more henotheistic in nature. The first time you really hear somebody say, "Hey, there is only one God. Everything else is just not in existence," um, that happens well past Josiah's reform, and Paul really kind of nailed that home. Hey, there is but one God. None of the rest of this matters. Like they just saying stuff that's not real.
But Paul was saying that Jesus was that guy. So, like, okay, this says that the transition to strict monotheism, where Yahweh was the sole creator and the only deity to worship, happened over time during and after the Babylonian exile.
Mhm. It'll be after Josiah's reform. Yeah. So,
And what
but
Jeremiah was after Josiah's reform,
no.
right?
You remember. Jeremiah was there right at the Babylonian exile. Remember, he told them that they were going into Babylon.
Right. So it says
Right.
during and after the Babylonian exile, right?
Yeah. So Jeremiah had been dead after the exile. Right.
Right. But
Yeah. Well, it would probably have been going on during his life though, because he
mhm,
was in he was in Babylon.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Because that's when. Oh, go ahead.
That's who I see as the first real Yahwehist is Jeremiah to
Yeah,
me.
He was definitely Team Yahweh for sure. He's
Yeah.
definitely, but that was a part of that transition of going from, you know, people people work well. Okay, I'm trying to make a distinction between people's beliefs and their worship practices, right? Um, when prior to that, because remember he fussed at the women of Judah. I think that's in
Hmm.
Jeremiah 44, where he fussed at the
Yeah.
women saying, "Hey, y'all still worshiping the Queen of Heaven? Don't do that." Right? But
Hmm.
he wasn't saying, well, I can't say what how he said. Let me say, there's nothing that I can quote that makes him say the Queen of Heaven isn't real, right? He was just saying, don't worship her, right? So, or when he said, oh, the nations do that for their gods, right? He didn't say their gods don't exist. He just saying, hey, that's a foul practice, and they do that for their gods. To recognize that other gods are in existence makes you some form of polytheistic. Now you may prefer one God over another. You may only worship one of these gods, right? Some people they would worship all their gods. Like when we, matter of fact, in the very next chapter, I think this is. It's either in the very next chapter, Exodus. I can't, maybe it's chapter 4. Anyway, point being, it must be chapter 4. When when um when Moses meets Ruel or Jethro, his father-in-law, right? His father-in-law is already a priest of a bunch of different gods,
Hmm.
right? And he just recognizes Yahweh as the Most High God, right? And that's how Moses saw it, as the Most High God. Then, but once they kind of separate, it takes a while for them to go from okay, our God is the Most High God to like, all right, our God is against their gods, and then it's like, okay, it's only our God that we worship. Those other gods just we don't like them to fit to when you get to there's only one God. Nothing else exists.
Yeah, like so when because like the what I see, like I said, like with Jeremiah, I don't see Jeremiah. I see him acknowledging the other gods as if they are not real or powerful, like they're false.
Not
He
powerful.
he, he calls them false gods,
Yeah.
right? And he says to tear down the Asherah poles and um you know uh that like they're not doing anything for them, right? So he doesn't see them, like in my eyes. Jeremiah doesn't see them as real gods or true gods to even worship, like no competition for Yahweh. And then the somebody told us on Friday, was it Friday or Thursday when we had the daytime live, that when Paul is talking in Romans 1:27,
Mhm.
he said that Paul is um telling the Christians not to worship the Roman gods, though, because they had to, and the land, they had to pay taxes or pay alms to the Roman gods, just like they did their Hebrew god or their Christian god, right?
Okay.
And he was telling them not to do it the way the Romans did, because that there was, they could either bring a gift, they could pay taxes, or they could do a sexual act, like a symbolic act. And they had like little young girls and young boys in there.
No,
Uh
that's getting
and
weird. That's weird.
and huh
That's freaky. That's freaky.
right. And he's telling them that he's admonishing the Roman offering system, and
Okay.
basically saying that the God gave them up over in their desires of their hearts to impurity, to dishonoring of their bodies among themselves. They exchanged the truth about God for a lie and
Mhm.
worship and serve the creature rather than the creator. And basically like saying they had like started um they had created idols with like parrot heads and like they had, he was talking about their idols, like the four-footed beasts, immortal
Mhm.
god for images resembling a mortal human or birds or four-footed animals or reptiles. So he
Mhm.
was saying like this has nothing to do with homosexuality, but the Roman um system for paying taxes or paying alms to the Roman gods. And he was telling the Christians had to do it because it was Roman law. They had to give alms to the Roman gods and worship their God.
Yes.
And he was saying, if you're gonna, like, we know you have to, just don't participate in this part. And he was talking about their females exchange natural intercourse for unnatural, and the same way the males. He was talking about the sexual symbolic act that they had an opportunity.
To participate in.
Yeah, because he said that like like we went and read all the way through it, and it is talking about the alms process of paying alms to the Roman gods, and Paul is like they don't even realize that in even in doing this that they're still worshiping the one and only true God.
Mm.
And but he's saying don't do it
Don't
this
do this
way.
part. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, because Paul just really thought it was just one. He go on later on and say, though there be gods many and lords many, we know that there's but one. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
he was really strict on his monotheism. But again, most of these kind of beliefs they tend to blur. They um most theology is blurred like that, right? Because it's theology, right? So
mhm,
it's kind of like if you say, well, is God all powerful? Yes. Well, if he's all powerful, then why don't he just stop the devil? Free will. Well, then he's not all powerful because well, he can stop free will, but he just don't. Well, then he just lacks that power. No, he chooses. It gets blurry. Monotheism works that way too because you have some people who, you know, um, well, that's the devil. Well, again, it just gets blurred. So when I think about where Jeremiah is, it's somewhere in the. He's definitely more. He's definitely a Yahweh. Let's go there. But I don't know if I could nail down if he thought that the false gods were not in existence at all and a waste of time,
Mhm.
or if they were uh, not connected to Israel in any way, or maybe they existed, or they just didn't, they weren't connected to Israel in any way, or if they were some kind of lesser beings, or some blur of all of that, because it's theology. You,
Like,
you
how
know.
did human like if they did think that these gods were real, how did like these humans literally believe that they could get rid of a god, like an immortal being, right? Like by destroying their statues or their poles or their,
Mhm.
the belief. And a lot of times, like when we talk to believers and we say that the God of Israel or
Mhm.
Jesus is the same way. Like if people just stopped believing, stopped reading the Bible, got rid of all the crosses, that then Jesus would be,
Yeah,
um, would
but
go
do
away.
they? But they wouldn't believe that now. Who was that? That came. Was it Naaman or Haman? Haman, who came to visit Elijah. He had leprosy. He came to visit Elijah, and he sent him down to the pool. I mean, no, to the Jordan, to wash in the Jordan. And then when he got healed, he came back. It was like, man, I want to, let me give you some clothes or something. He was like, no, don't give me no clothes. And the dude said, okay, well, let me take some dirt from Israel home
Yeah.
with me so that I could worship this God in Israel, right? Because keep in mind that at least at that point, the gods were just attached to a boundary of land, right?
Hmm.
Uh, so some people would go. I mean, I've heard Dr. McClellan suggest that Yahweh could not be worshipped outside of the boundaries of Israel, right? So he was going to take that little plot of land because the other gods had territory in other places. So that idea it blurs, right? Like I don't know if you ever reach a point where, it, like for example, if I tried to take a regular degular believer to like a satanic temple, right? Well, they would believe that in that building there existed some other divine entity, right? Like I'm not going in there because the demons are in there, or the devil is in there, or who, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, but it's not because they believe. If you ask them, well, is God all powerful? Yeah. Well, then why are you worried about it? It's a blur.
Yeah.
Um. Yeah.
Like I saw a video the other day where a kid was, showing his different personalities. He has DID,
Mm.
and he was showing his different personalities. And I was cracking up in the comments by the number of believers that were in the comments. Like, I would be scared to be around you. I'd run if I was around you. And I'm like, but right. And they like in Jesus' name. I'm like, he's literally telling y'all he has a mental uh health condition, and y'all pleading the blood of Jesus, talking about you will run. Like, and it's the different personalities that make people think of that a person has a demon because their personality shift. That's crazy. But if
Yeah.
that's the case, right? And you have Jeremiah, Josiah, Elisha, all of them saying that you could get rid of a belief in a God by simply telling people not to believe, by simply getting rid of their statutes, right?
Mm.
And teaching them a new doctrine that's supposed to kill the God. I don't see why that wouldn't work on Jesus.
Well, it's hard to kill an idea, even though that's what they believe. That's not how life works, right? Keep in mind, 2,000 and some odd years later, people still are trying to wrestle with the idea of what is Satan. Like, is he a god? Uh, he has God-like powers in some cases, in some people's beliefs. Um,
Yeah, but
some
like
people
people
believe
don't worship Pan today.
they don't. They don't. well, no, no. Some people do. It's not a widespread, but there are people who practice parts of paganism that still talk about pain, right? But the idea in and of itself doesn't go away, right? Like the worship system may go away, and I guess an idea can die. It just dies much slower than like it,
Yeah.
yeah, it
That's
just
what I'm
dies
saying. Like
much
the
slower.
same
Yeah.
thing that they did with the Roman and Greek gods. The same thing they did with the African spirituality gods, the Mayan gods, the Native American gods, right? The Asian gods, like whatever they did, believers think that that can't happen with Jesus.
Oh well, it definitely does. I mean, if a group of people powerful enough to come break everything up, did it for a long enough time, you would forget. You know what I'm saying?
Didn't they
And it's
forget about Yahweh for a couple hundred years while they were in Babylon? In
absolutely. Well, they
the
were there
land?
70, right? How long were they in Babylon?
70 years.
Yeah, 70.
But in history, there is like a 300-year gap where there is no mention of Yahweh. Like all of their information was destroyed and they had to come in. And that's where a lot of this text was written during and
Kind
after
of re,
Babylonian
re putting it
Empire.
together. Yeah, putting it
Yeah,
back together. Hmm.
yeah.
Well, which means somebody knew about it. It might not have been, the widespread practice, right? But somebody knew about it. And that's what I mean. Like history is so history is very you can only tell a couple pieces of it, right? But it's not clean. Like history is it's not like okay, today they forgot about Yahweh. Nobody knew about Yahweh after this day, right? Like
Mhm,
somebody knew about him. It might not have been the practice. It might have been going through some transformations. They might have not been using their name anymore. They might have been, kind of blurring this practice into a new practice. But the idea didn't just go away,
mhm.
right? It just
Well,
normally
it
the
kind
idea
of
to
did. It just
transfer.
lived down in the minds of, a few people,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like there are pagans today that believe in like the Greek gods. Like there are people who still believe in like ancestral worship. Like they never really did kill the ideas of the other gods,
Right.
right? But the but the book literally is saying that that's what the God wants
That's
them
what's
to do.
supposed to happen, right?
Yeah,
But it just don't work that way. But yeah, that was definitely what they were suggesting. That's what they thought. You know what I'm saying? If we tear down these altars, the God will go away. In as much as if I take this dirt with me, I can worship you, like Yahweh will come with me. Okay, you know what I'm saying? That's cool, I guess. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? But remember, was it Rachel? I think it was Rachel when she left the house and
Mhm.
she brought the idol with her.
Yeah, and
Right.
sat on top of them.
Yeah, and it was like, oh, now you brought a curse with us because you. Yeah, okay, yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah,
And the
okay,
and it's the guy saying this stuff, right?
yeah,
Like, yeah, your God should know better. If we as humans can tell that an idea has the possibility of living on in one brain or two, then your
yeah,
God should have known that too.
yeah.
But yeah,
Because all it
that's
takes is
how
one
you
brain.
know it's human.
Yep. All it takes is one brain to remember.
Yeah,
Darling, they get ready to board. I'm gonna
yeah.
have to get one. I'll catch
Okay.
y'all soon.
All right.
All right.
Safe flight. Thank
Yes.
you. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining Versus Advice with Thinker and Bash. We'll see y'all next Sunday. Make sure that you hit the notify me button and share the broadcast. I'll see y'all on TikTok stream. I hope y'all have a great weekend. Bye.